What is going on, Notre Dame fans? Mike Singer, Jack Soble, and Tyler Horka live on the Blue and Gold YouTube channel with this neat. Sorry, guys.
We're off to an excellent start here,
dude. I've been through it this week with this week's Notre Dame six-pack show, where we have 6 Notre Dame topics, take 6 minutes to discuss each of them. And it's a lot of fun when I'm not coughing. Folks, please hit the thumbs up on this video. Subscribe to the Blue and Gold YouTube channel for more content. Notre Dame football season is here. No one's going to get you ready like Academy Sports and Outdoors. So swing by your local Academy store or shop online at academy.com to find everything you need, from grills to jerseys and more. Be a watch party legend with gear from top brands like Nike and Under Armour, all at unbeatable prices every day. And speaking by swinging by your local Academy store, if you're from the Hoosier State, there are 8 stores in Indiana, with one coming soon to Mishawaka at the end of the month. So make sure you head to academy.com, check out what they have to offer, and stop by your local Academy store. So gear up today with Academy Sports and Outdoors. Boys, I trust that you're well, so we're going to skip the pleasantries and dive right into today's six-pack. How does Notre Dame match up with A&M? Jack, I don't know where you want to take this exactly, but what are some key matchups? Maybe some going in Notre Dame's favor and then some maybe not?
Well, I mean, we have to start with, of course, happy birthday, Tyler Horka, turning 29 years old once again. And there is no better way to celebrate Tyler Horka's birthday than talking about Texas A&M. So first of all, the matchup I'm looking at is I didn't think I would say this coming into the season, but it's the A&M receivers against the Notre Dame defensive backfield, because A&M's 2 new receivers, the NC State transfer, Kevin Casey Concepcion, who Notre Dame fans might remember, he was a freshman at NC State in 2023 when they played them. Had a great year in 23, a little bit of a down year in 24, but he's looked great so far. He's got an 80-yard punt return for a touchdown. Mario Craver, the Mississippi State transfer, has looked even better. He had a 72-yard receiving touchdown this past week against Utah State. He's got, I believe he's 3rd in the country in yards after catch so far this season. 2 not bigger guys, but really quick, really fast. I think Craver topped out at over 21 miles per hour, is the 2nd fastest speed in the country last week on that touchdown. It's going to be interesting for a Notre Dame team who kind of struggled with a smaller, quicker receiver like Malachi Tony of Miami last week. We talked to Leonard Moore and Mike Mickens yesterday. They talked about kind of like needing to get hands on fast receivers, be physical with blockers so they can't do much after the catch. It's an interesting matchup, and I think the Notre Dame secondary is way too prideful to get beat like they did a few times against Miami again.
I'll add one note on that side of the ball, and sort of along those lines. Notre Dame's got to find a way to rattle Marcel Reed a little bit and not allow it to be easy for him to find the guys that you were just talking about, because that's the last thing that you want Notre Dame to do if you're an Irish fan in this game, is allow an opposing quarterback to come in, settle down, and kind of control his own terms in this football game. You didn't see that a whole lot with Al Golden-led defenses. I mean, I think somebody put it on the message board earlier today. It was like, man, the blueprint needs to be whatever Notre Dame did to Caleb Williams in 2023. And I know, Jack, Caleb Williams is a sore spot for you right now, but let's just talk about what he did. What's the hand up there for?
Oh, it's covering up.
No, I got you. I didn't even notice that. Yeah, there you go. It might need to just take that thing down. All those teams.
I probably do, yeah.
We've had that conversation before. But, like, I firmly believe even in that season, Caleb Williams was maybe one of, if not the best, like, college football players. He was just incredible at USC all the time. And Notre Dame made him look so pedestrian in that game. So whatever you have to do to make Marcel Reed look pedestrian, you go from there for sure. On the other side of the ball, I'm a little bit worried, and I'm not fully as worried as some Notre Dame fans are about this, but Jack, did you see Cassius Howell get 3 sacks in a row on 3
consecutive plays? He's someone they're very high on right now. Yeah.
The offseason talk with him was, all right, now that Shamar Stewart's gone, Nick Scorton's gone, he can be the guy. And I get it. They were playing Utah State in that game, but dude, in terms of the combination of strength and speed and quickness, he's got pass rush moves. He's not just some guy that's like, let me go on a straight line and try to get at the quarterback here. No, he can throw a little something at you. And if Emil Wagner and Anthony Knapp play like they did against Miami, he will get to CJ Carr. And I get it. CJ Carr is elusive, and he made some nice plays to avoid sacks in that game. But Cassius Howell he's a guy that sacks the quarterback. That's what he does. That's what he's in the game for. And I'm a little bit worried about that if I'm Notre Dame. You need your tackles to play very good in this game.
Yeah, it's not even a weak opponent thing at this point because you saw the performance in the bowl game against USC for Cassius Howell. And on a per snap basis, he was their most efficient pass rusher on the team last year, even on a team with Scorton and Stewart and Turner. So he's a guy who a lot of people think is going to be a breakout player this year, and he certainly hasn't done anything to disprove that. Elsewhere defensively, Texas A&M is pretty vulnerable, at least so far. That's what they've shown. Like, obviously, UTSA ran the ball very well on them. That game was closer than it should have been for a long time. Tackling has been an issue going back to last year. I was actually talking with Jackson Calloway from On3's Texas A&M site, Aggie Yale. He said that Will Lee, who's the corner, his nickname's the Blanket, who was a second-team All-SEC corner, and that he's been their worst corner so far, and that he's kind of looked uninterested through the first couple games. He said the cornerbacks tackling in the run game, that's been a problem for them, which is obviously it's a very, very big problem against Jadarian Price and Jeremiah Love, who like to Price more than Love, but like to bounce outside and make plays on the edge. So that's something that if Notre Dame can really get the run game going and really create a couple of big plays, it's going to be a huge problem for A&M. On the other side, though, the one area like the wide receivers were a bit of a question mark coming into the season. They've answered that in the affirmative so far, but still need to prove it against a good team. The one area that was not a question mark was the offensive line in the run game, and that's looked as good as advertised. A very experienced O-line, all 5 starters returning, plus a couple backups who have starting experience returning, and then Reuben Owens and Le'Veon Moss in the backfield. Some really good backs there. So they should be able to run the ball in pretty much anyone they play, including Notre Dame.
Yeah, I think that's why for me the thing that you need to win if you're Notre Dame is getting to Reed, or at least limiting him, because
you got to rattle him.
Yeah, you got to rattle him, because I'm not totally sold on Notre Dame's run defense. And guess what? That wasn't the strength of Al Golden's Notre Dame defenses either. You can win a lot of games without the best run defense. So just get to the quarterback.
Jack, do you have much of a take on if this early bye week was good or bad for Notre Dame?
I think it was a good thing. I think some of the fans and players, crucially, it's not just the fans, would have loved to get back on the field against Texas A&M on that Monday night. But I think Notre Dame needed these 2 weeks. Number one, with an inexperienced quarterback. Obviously, Carr looked good, but he wasn't perfect. You'd love the 2 weeks to get him some work. You love the 2 weeks to work out some of the issues on the offensive and defensive lines. You love the 2 weeks to focus on schematics and how to match the scheme to the personnel. And you just love the 2 weeks to get extra work in before what is now the biggest regular season game since USC of last year. And we'll talk more about how it stacks up with a lot of big regular season games. But it's a must-win game, right? You 2 weeks is good to prepare for a big-time opponent, especially because Marcus Freeman, I believe this is still true, has never lost after a bye week as the head coach at Notre Dame. Tyler, you can fact-check me on that, but I believe that remains true. So I think it's a really good thing. If they were playing Purdue next week, I would say you would love to get back on the field as soon as possible to kind of wash out the loss. But because they're playing A&M, I think it's a huge thing.
Yeah, Marcus is undefeated out of bye weeks. I think it's 5-0 because they had the 2 and the 1. I don't know. It's either 5-0 or 6-0. I need to look at my stories from last year.
Weeks, I believe.
Yeah, I know he hasn't lost. That is factual information, Jack. A lot of nuance in why this was probably a good time for a Notre Dame bye. For one, they played on Sunday night, like turning around and playing. Like if this Texas A&M game was on Saturday night after a Sunday night game, and everything that happened in that Miami game went that way, oh my gosh, that would be the most condensed, worrisome 4 or 5 days for Notre Dame. Like you said, Jack, now they've had 10, 12, almost 14 days by the time they kick off to kind of dissect what happened in that game. And that's the second part of what I was going to say is it kind of opened up some wounds or some sore spots for Notre Dame to look at and say, oh my gosh, like we need to be better here. We need to do this differently. And that's both coaching, that's personnel not playing adequately in that football game. So I guarantee you they spent a little extra time poring over game tape than they would had this just been a normal 7 days, first couple days are looking back at what you did on Saturday, flush it, let's go play on Saturday again. No, this was, like you said, Jack, a full 2 weeks of being able to look at these things. Here's the one mental thing, maybe. The players, anyway, the coaches were probably like over the moon about the extra time. But the players, you can kind of get the sense from Jadarian Price yesterday when we talked to him, Jaden Greathouse, they want to get back on that football field and show everybody that was not Notre Dame football and they're better than that. What they need to understand is maybe you do need that extra time to get back to being that team. But I do know that the players are absolutely chomping at the bit to play this Texas A&M team, and they've probably felt like it's been a little bit too long of a wait.
I think it's not just game planning too. Like we've talked about the game planning aspect a lot, but Marcus Freeman, when I asked him about the benefits of an early bye, he said they got a chance to do some good on good periods to starters against the starters during the bye, and that's big this early in the season and after a game like that, because it kind of loosens you up a little bit. It's like, all right, result doesn't matter here, but let's play fast, let's play hard, let's play physical. They're not tackling to the ground, of course, for safety risks, but I think that's something they need. And you talk to the players, it was like, yeah, let's just get some extra work against our elite secondary, against our elite backs or what have you. Like it's something that I think the players needed after that game, and obviously Marcus Freeman knows how to handle a bye week, as we said, because of the history. So that's a benefit as well.
Another benefit, and Marcus Freeman also said this, I think maybe unprompted, or at least it was in response to the first question about the bye week, is that as healthy as Notre Dame is, there were still some guys who were probably nicked up, and that's why we didn't see them. I've harped on not using Aeneas Williams over and over again. I've harped on not using Ty Washington over and over again. And Ty Washington was dealing with the wrist in fall camp, right? Aeneas Williams, we saw him, never really been publicly said what's going on, but we saw him with like an elbow brace, basically. And running back kind of needs to use his elbows and whatnot. So if those guys got healthier, which you assume they did, and we see a lot more of them in this Texas A&M game, then you'll be thankful for the bye week, because if Notre Dame had to play in week 2, not sure that those guys would have been ready then as well. So you do hope that you see them, though, because I think that would change Notre Dame's offense drastically. Like the reason the backfield was so good last year is because you had Love, Price, and Williams. And at Notre Dame all the time, the reason you call it TEU, like it's up there in the conversation with Miami or Iowa and those other schools who've produced so many tight ends, is because you have so many of them. And it still blows my mind that Eli Raridan was basically the only one that we saw outside of the one play for Ty Washington. So it sounds crazy, but like even this early in a season, if you have an extra week to get healthier, then you take that extra week every single time.
Yeah, I asked Marcus Freeman about the tight end usage on Monday, and he said it was more of a game plan decision, which I think the three of us are on the same page. We think is not entirely true. But I mean, it makes sense. You want the head coach to protect his players and not throw them under the bus. But I have to believe they were spending a good portion of the bye week focused on getting a second tight end ready.
Yeah, I think they're a little coach speak there. Tyler, what are you expecting from like the defense? Do you think we'll see much different than Miami schematically?
Schematically, I really don't think so. And I don't think that's what Notre Dame fans want to hear. But look, you have to realize that Marcel Reed can get out on the run and beat you. And I really do think it's a thing of, if we saw so much zone defense from Chris Ash in that first game, that's probably what they were repping a lot in fall camp. I wish we were privy to seeing more of that. But like, look, guys, it's very common for college football teams to run a lot of zone, and it just hasn't been common for Notre Dame to do it in the last couple of seasons, because Al Golden said, you know what, we're going to man up and do our thing. That's why it was such a big thing, a talking point the last couple of seasons, is because Al Golden went against the grain, and Notre Dame played so much man defense. And can it burn you? Yeah. If you're playing a really good quarterback with some really good wide receivers and he's got time to throw and all those things, then yeah, it can burn you. But Marcel Reed can burn you with his legs too. And I think maybe sitting in that zone, but a stronger zone, a more focused zone with direction and players seemingly knowing what they're doing and getting to their spots and making it hard on Texas A&M to pick up those yards. Like it was too easy for Miami. So you can sit in a zone and make it hard on the opponent. I think that's what you see from Notre Dame. That might be a little bit different. And then player-wise, you see a little bit more of who Notre Dame was last year, Jack. I think that was missing in that game, and maybe it was because they were doing something entirely different. And look, I wouldn't be completely shocked if Notre Dame goes back to being the man team that it was even in this game against this opponent, against that quarterback on the other side. So whatever you do, though, if you're Chris Ash, make sure the guys know the premise, the direction, what they need to be doing, because it did seem a little bit aimless at Miami, and it needs to be more focused against Texas A&M.
Yeah, I think you might have mentioned this in Hey Horka, but I think disguising and mixing things up is very important against Texas A&M, because look, against a quarterback who runs as well as Marcel Reed does, and say whatever you want about Marcel Reed, he runs very, very well. You can talk about playing zone, you can talk about quarterback spying. Doesn't really matter when the quarterback runs around you anyway, and that can happen when the quarterback is locked in and he knows what's happening and he's reading the field correctly. And if he gets a jump on you, like, it doesn't really matter what coverage you're playing, he's probably gonna run around you. So confusion is the big aspect. If you're making the quarterback a step slow, if he's having to think, if he's having to read things post snap and not pre snap, that's when you can limit his rushing ability, and that's when you can cage rush him and stay in your rushing lanes and play some zone and play some spy and do all those things. That was the big thing. You mentioned the Caleb Williams game against USC. Notre Dame played a lot of man in that game, but they had Caleb Williams mentally in a blender, so they were able to contain him. Like, you can't run around as a quarterback if you're not reading the field, because then who knows, you're going to run into someone. That's what happened a lot. And instead of running into someone, he threw the ball up and into nowhere, and it got intercepted. So obviously Marcel Reed's a different quarterback than Caleb was. Williams is more of an improviser. Reed is more of a dual threat kind of guy. And Notre Dame has done against Golden, did well under Golden, has done well against those guys in the past. Riley Leonard hurt them a little bit with his legs in 23, but they generally did well against him. Brennan Armstrong, we've talked about the NC State game already. They had him in a blender as well. It's just a lot of confusion and disguises, and I'd say aggressiveness too. Like, you can play zone, of course you can spy, but it's a matter of playing faster than the quarterback and being a step ahead of the quarterback. And I think that's the real key for the defense.
Yeah, the one thing I worry about with Reed, and you make a good point about how he differs from Williams, is that, like, he's going to take off a little bit earlier, probably. Caleb Williams wants to take off at the last second, and he'll still get his yards, especially at the college level. He even did a little bit the other night with his legs. He's no statue, but with Reed, it's like unpredictability on his end. So I think you need to be unpredictable on your end and plant a seed of doubt. Like, get to him early and make him think, this is what I thought I was going to be able to do in this game against this opponent. Maybe not. And that's the blender that you talk about, Jack. Like, it's become like a cliche term. Like, oh yeah, he's in a mental blender, but like, that's the reason we say it. You ever seen a blender chop up a bunch of stuff in a smoothie, man? It doesn't look fun to be in there. And that's what you need to do against Marcel Reed. Make it not fun for him to play in this game. And that isn't just like laying a big hit early. I think guys can come back from that and still play good football. It's the confusion aspect. It's Chris Ash being a step ahead. And by way of that, Notre Dame's players being a step ahead and knowing where to be. And like you said, shutting down what he's trying to do. It's that simple. And it's that simple when you talk about it, but like for these players who have been repping this and should be knowing what they're doing, it all goes back to what I was saying in my first little diatribe there. It's play with some direction. And like you said, Jack, by way of that, it's playing with velocity, because you're getting there quicker and you're playing faster. Great.
Now I'm hungry because of the smoothie thing. Real quick, we've talked about Reed a lot, but A&M's strength is the run game, and that offensive line with Armaj Reed Adams, the big long guard, Trey Zune, a really solid tackle who I believe Notre Dame recruited, was a second team all SEC guy. They will fire off the ball like Miami did. They're not as big and hulking as Miami was, but I think the backs are better, and the line is really, really good in its own right. Notre Dame needs to get better defensive line play in the run game, and it needs to tackle better, a lot better against A&M.
All right, I'm here. I am just I'm struggling because I have an ad read and I currently am pulling it up. Have you guys ever been sick before? You have. It sucks.
I
Everyone's
think
been sick.
everybody's been sick. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody has been sick.
It sucks. My head, I'm just not in my normal headspace. All right. We're back. Folks, as you know, On Three and Blue and Gold's teamed up with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for our listeners and YouTube viewers each week. So when you join BetMGM, you get access to a variety of parlay selections, features like same-game parlays, live betting options, and more. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use the bonus code ON3, and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. You download the BetMGM app and sign up using that bonus code ON3. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use that bonus code ON3 when you sign up. So make this college football season one for the history books. Make it legendary. And don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use the bonus code ON3 and get up to $1,500 for your first bet offer today. All right, let's see if I can make this transition. Boom. Boom. Big night for the offense. Let's see Jack Carr rip it a little bit. Maybe have him throw it 50 times. Have J Love carry it 40 times. Jack, what do you think? 90 snaps?
90
Yeah,
snaps?
90, yeah, I don't know. I'm just joking. What do you think?
Run the ball, block is the biggest. I know that's cliche, but like you need to run the ball until A&M proves it can stop it. Even with the loaded box. If you load the box, and you get past the first wave, gone because A&M doesn't tackle well enough. Like you watch A&M against UTSA this year. You watch the South Carolina game last year with Rocket Sanders. I forget where Rocket Sanders got drafted, but he looked like Jeremiah Love in that game. And Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price were obviously really good last year against Texas A&M. It hasn't gotten better for them this year. Jackson Callaway, again, I'm referencing my interview with him. It's on up on the site, blueandgold.com. Said Taurine York, the star middle linebacker, has been in and out of the right position a little bit early this season. You got defensive back struggling to tackle. The interior defensive line, I think, is probably more of a concern than the edge rushers for them. It's a little less proven. So you got Howell on the edge. It's a run defense and frankly a pass defense. If you can get Love and Price out on screens, that is vulnerable, and you just got to do that until not until they start loading the box, but until they prove they can actually stop it.
Yeah, I like that. And if you read what I most recently put out at blueandgold.com, it's lean into that run game, man, because these guys, Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Price, I completely agree with Mike Elko, Texas A&M's head coach, when he said, I've been doing this a long time, and I don't know if I've seen a better tandem since Sony Michel and Nick Chubb. And that's it's a pretty good tandem right there that Georgia had, obviously. And that was when Elko was at Notre Dame as well. So, like, if you're Notre Dame, those are your two best guys to have the football in their hands. And I don't see why you don't put the football in their hands early and often in this game. Like you said, Jack, referencing last year's game, combined for 135 rushing yards in that game, and you can make a case that they had the two biggest plays of the night for the Notre Dame offense. I know there was a completion from Riley Leonard in there on third down that you definitely have to look at as well, because at that point the Jeremiah Love touchdown is not possible. But when it was a 6-6 game and Jadarian Price went out the left edge for a 47-yard touchdown, I think I remember looking at you in the press box in College Station saying, like, that's the touchdown they needed to kind of assert themselves in this environment and say, hey, we're going to make the big play tonight. And then, like I said, Jeremiah Love made a big play when we were running down the tunnel at College Station there at Kyle Field, and he kind of ran right at us, 21-yard touchdown. So they're capable of that in this game, again, for all of the reasons that you mentioned, them being who they are and Texas A&M being who they are, probably a defense that Mike Elko would like to see improve throughout the year, because if this is who they're going to be all year, 203 yards against UTSA, I don't care what the circumstances in that game were, season opener, all those things, not going to cut it. It got a little bit better against Utah State in the run game, but look, if it's still September, Notre Dame should be able to maybe do what UTSA did. Like, I think if you look at last year's game, when you get two quality opponents, you can't just say that Notre Dame is going to go for 200 because this measly UTSA opponent or whoever it is also went for that. I think game flow dictates a lot of things, but the 135 that Love and Price combined for last year will probably do you a solid again this year, especially if you get some other people involved in that run game. So we'll talk about some other things in the next 2 minutes, obviously, but I am totally with you. Run the ball, man. Run the ball.
I would like to see them work some play action as well. We heard Mike Elko after the bowl game last year really talk about how much the Aggies struggled to cover, especially in zone defense. He basically said, like, we can't cover the forward pass. Not basically. I think this is a direct quote. He said, we can't cover the forward pass well enough to be a good football team. And Notre Dame needs to test their ability to do that because a lot of the same players in the secondary have returned, like including the backs, including the back seven as well with the linebackers York and Scooby Williams. Notre Dame needs to test really how much they've improved upon that, and if they really start keying in on the run game, enough with the screens, play action, maybe put 7 in protection. See if you can't take a shot that way. I think that could really work against this Texas A&M team.
A couple of things with the Notre Dame pass game. It's going to be set up by a good rushing attack. Marcus Freeman even mentioned that in his Monday press conference. So run the ball, pass the ball. It's always been the go-to mantra for really good football teams.
Run the ball and pass the ball.
What's that?
I would also suggest they run the ball and pass the ball.
Yeah, run the ball, then pass the ball, a little bit of both. But here's the other thing. CJ Carr's ready. And I asked Marcus Freeman about that on Monday on purpose, and he gave the answer that I thought he was going to give, and I think it's the perfect answer. You saw everything from CJ Carr in the second half of that Miami game to say there are no limitations on this guy. Is he susceptible to a bad game? Of course, every quarterback is. He's not going to be infallible throughout his Notre Dame career, but I think he showed you enough in that game to think that he's going to be good more times than he's going to be bad. In this season opener, you like to think that in his first start at Notre Dame Stadium, he's going to be good. So the Malachi Fields play that we really only saw one of, do that more often. Put him in a position to make a play. CJ Carr can put the ball where it needs to go, and that will be obviously supplemented by a really good rushing attack. So I think Notre Dame has an ability here and a chance to do both things really well in this game. I really do.
Guys, like who are some players primed to bounce back? Please mention the tackles. The Notre Dame offensive tackles. Are they going to have a big game against A&M after not looking great against Miami? What do you think, Jack?
Yeah, the tackles certainly, and I think Notre Dame needs to help out the tackles by staying in some advantageous situations. We saw what Ruben Bain did to them when he knew it was gonna be a pass in the last minute or so, and he could pin his ears back and rush CJ Carr. I would not want to see what Cassius Howell can do in that same situation if I were Notre Dame. First name I'll throw out, Jaden Greathouse. I've obviously held off the score sheet. Interesting play that I saw while I was watching film. Greathouse got 2 targets. One was batted down. The other one, it was a 3rd and 4. So Tyler, you mentioned the 3rd down conversion Notre Dame had to him at the end of that A&M game. They ran the exact same play, literally the exact same play, same formation, same Greathouse motions across the formation, same little out route that Greathouse uses. His momentum with the motion to get ahead of the DB. It worked. Carr just misses the throw, and that's the kind of thing that's obviously frustrating for a wide receiver. And Greathouse said all the right things when we talked to him yesterday. But you have that and the pass batted down as your 2 targets, and that's going to be frustrating for any wide receiver, and especially a competitive one like Jaden Greathouse. I look for him to have a strong game against Texas A&M because Notre Dame needs to get him involved.
Yeah, I'll start there with the wide receivers. I don't have the numbers pulled up in front of me, but if you combine Jeremiah Love's targets, which I thought were a good thing, and yeah, maybe it wasn't explosive, but he moved the chains a couple of times and he got CJ Carr out of a little bit of trouble a couple of times. So you need to keep that in your arsenal if you're Notre Dame. But if you combine those with what Eli Raridan, I think, who led Notre Dame in targets with, I think it was 6 or 7 or so, that's half of CJ Carr's throwing attempts right there. So again, we talk every single offseason about why these Notre Dame wide receivers are going to be, going to be better. Show us, please, get them involved. And again, like you said, Jack, it's not all their fault. Sometimes it's missing throws. Sometimes it's missing blocks. We hear Marcus Freeman talk about that all the time, that it's always not on the fault of the wide receivers for why they're not involved. But you see it with these other teams. You see it with Texas A&M. You talked about it in the very opening segment of this show that they have a couple of guys in Mario Craver and KC Concepcion, who just kind of show up on the scene and are guys for them. So I would love to see Notre Dame's wide receivers be guys for the Notre Dame offense in this game. So they need to bounce back. A couple defensive guys who I thought maybe didn't have their best games. Drake Bowen's a team captain. He was highlighted in Marcus Freeman's press conference. Look, if you're going to be the man in the middle of the Notre Dame defense, you got to play like it. Henry is the head that wears the crown, basically, with him. Is like, dude, you're in this position because everyone on that coaching staff, the fan base, your teammates think the world of you. So go make some otherworldly plays and go be that guy because he's capable of it. The missed tackle stat, Jack, that you put out to us last week is just incredible. Like, just incredible in the sense that, like, I can't believe it. So don't miss any tackles, Drake. Go out there and be the sure-handed guy that you were last year. And then maybe Leonard Moore, like, just like be that dude. And I'm not saying he had the worst game. There are definitely some other guys that you could single out there, but, you know, he gets beat on the double move and maybe even missed a tackle or two as well. Just like make the big hit, make the big play, get the big PBU. In a game like this, your star players need to be your star players. So we saw Benjamin Morrison do it all the time. We saw Xavier Watts do it all the time. Leonard Moore, you're that guy in the Notre Dame secondary. Go be that guy.
Yeah, Bowen's a good one. I don't want to know what he's planning on writing on his wrist tape this game. I wouldn't want to be the guy lining up across from Drake Bowen after the game he had in week one. I have a lot of confidence that he's going to bounce back. Adon Schuler's another guy. Both Marcus Freeman indirectly and Mike Mickens directly referenced the one-handed catch when A. Moore got beat on a double move, which never happens, and Moore addressed that in his press conference yesterday. But Mickens said about Schuler, like, look, you just got to attack the football. That's really it. You can't sit there waiting for it. And Schuler knows that. Schuler's a tough kid. He's going to bounce back. The defensive tackles are my last shout out. Like all four of them, or however many played, like, it shows some pride. They to be fair, they did late in that game. They were, like I said last week, they were noticeably and considerably better in the last quarter and a half after Miami's final touchdown drive. But you look at some of that early tape and you go like, all right, these guys need to be much better against the Armaj Reed Adams of the world against Texas A&M. So the defensive tackles, like, not only hold the line, make some plays, man. We've seen much better performances against good teams from Donovan Hinish. A lot of people after that game said, oh, Donovan Hinish is too small to play defensive tackle. That was a bad game for him. We've seen him make plays against really large offensive linemen. He was great in that Georgia game. He was great down the stretch against I'm blanking, against the USCs of the world. Like he had a
was
great.
Was it the Virginia game where he really balled out? Where Cross went out?
Virginia. Oh no, the Florida State game, which Florida State was terrible, but they had some big freaking linemen. So Donovan Hinish can do it. He's just got to bounce back from that game.
I almost wonder if Marcus Freeman was like trying to talk confidence into these guys with the last thing that he told us at the end of fall camp was like,
there might be some truth to that.
He's like, I really trust these guys. And then I don't know, that I agree with you. They weren't up to snuff there.
Speaking of Marcus Freeman, is this like his biggest regular season game as Notre Dame head coach? It's obviously not biggest postseason or game overall. He's played in the national championship game or coached in it. Would you say this is like the most pivotal one for him as a head coach, Tyler?
I like the use of the word pivotal because I don't think it would be his biggest regular season game. I think his very first regular season game was pretty big. You had and preseason rankings obviously don't mean anything because Notre Dame ends up going 8-4 in that season. But at the time, you had top 5 Ohio State, you had top 5 Notre Dame. That was a massive game. I go back to 2 years ago with Ohio State and Notre Dame. I think that was probably still a little bigger than this one, if that's the word you want to use. But pivotal, yeah. I mean, you go back to the season opener in 2022 that I just talked about. It's not pivotal. If you lose, you're only 0-1, and in theory, you have the rest of the season ahead of you. You're still in the running for the playoff. Now, what happened against Marshall the next week took you out of it. In hindsight, that was a pretty pivotal game, but we just didn't realize it before kickoff. But this one, you do realize it's pivotal because you're in the same situation. You are 0-1, and you know that this team can beat you. You didn't know that Marshall could beat you like that, and that's why Marshall did win that game. You just didn't know it could happen. Texas A&M can beat you, and if they do, you are 0-2, and maybe you are out of the college football playoff conversation because look at the rest of your schedule. Who's your next best win going to be? USC. And if you lose to these two teams, USC can beat you as well. And I'm not sure about some of the other teams on the schedule. We'll get into that later on down the line. But in terms of magnitude, Jack, like you need this one. You need this one really, really bad.
Yeah, I go back and forth between like in terms of biggest regular season game. Shout out the Purdue game last year just because of how badly they needed to bounce back. They were obviously going to win that game whether they played like they did against NIU or not. Like Purdue was such an abominably bad team last year. The USC game was a big one because it was literally win and in or lose and go home. This game is really huge just because of how different the next 3.5 months would be if they lose. It becomes from that's the wrong way to say that. It goes from this is a championship caliber team trying to make the college football playoff and do some damage once you get there to this is a team preparing for 2026. That's obviously not the mentality the team's going to take, but I wouldn't say they're out of it. I don't see a realistic path to the playoff if they lose this game. They would need a lot to go right for them for that to happen. And then it's just going to be a very different 3 months. Like not all the momentum from making the national championship game would go away. A good amount of the momentum for making the national championship game would go away. Cause then the question would become how repeatable is it? And I don't know how fair that would be, especially because if the game comes down to quarterbacking experience, because again, that's a risk that you took. Obviously CJ Carr wasn't the reason Notre Dame lost last week, but you never know. That's the risk you take when you start a redshirt freshman who didn't play last year. Like it's so huge for maintaining the momentum that the program has, because that would not all, but mostly go away if they lose this game.
Couple things here, looking at the schedule just on ESPN's website. It's crazy not to see another number next to a Notre Dame opponent in the next 10 games after this. So that makes this huge because this is right now easily your best chance at your best win the rest of the year. And there's no question about that. Secondly, talking about the momentum aspect there, Jack, I like that you bring that up because there will be some sky is falling type of pressure on this program if it loses this game. I haven't even dug into this, and maybe it's going to prompt me to, just in preparation for the possibility of Notre Dame losing this game. I don't know if there's been another Notre Dame head coach ever to start a season to start 2 seasons 0-2. Like I can't think of any that have done that. So you're going to see that from the national media. It's going to be on social media. And look, all the players, the coaches are going to turn to we're not looking at that. We're just trying to go 1-0 next week. Let's get to 10-2 by the end of the year, all of that stuff. But the pressure is going to be on Notre Dame if it loses this game. And that's the peril of starting with 2 games like this. Nobody else in the country, I don't think, has played 2 top 20 teams to start the year. It's probably unique to Notre Dame. And the goal, I don't think they would ever outwardly say the goal was always to go 1-1 in these games. But Jack, when we talked about it in these videos and we on the message board and everywhere, it always felt like, hey, just go 1-1 and you'll be fine because you're going to beat
all you need to do is split them.
You're going to beat a good team in one of those. And it turns out this loss to Miami as it stands and probably will be going forward was a good loss, as good of a loss as you could have. So if you just win this one, you save your season. Like, am I going on too far out on a limb to say if you win this game, you save your season? Win this game, season's on. Lose this game, season goes to hell in a handbasket. And I'm not quite sure what that
feels
is.
very different going forward. Yeah.
Yeah, it's more like the Hartman year, right? You're playing in the Sun Bowl or something like that. That's the direction of the season. Or like Jack said, you get in at 10-2 and you are just thanking your lucky stars because you got an incredible amount of help.
Well,
but
put it this way: for Notre Dame to get in at 10-2 with losses to Miami and A&M, I don't think there are any bigger USC fans outside of Southern California than Notre Dame going forward, because
And you,
they would need USC to be like a top 15 team for that to work.
Same with A&M, right? You would need Miami to kill it too, and then you would need
Of
like
course.
Arkansas to be good. You would need Purdue to win more than 2 games.
But
Just joking.
The bigger, like, yes, I agree with the Miami name and A&M thing. The bigger issue would be you need to find a quality win somewhere, and at that point, that would be out of Notre Dame's control.
you don't want to be fighting for one of those last couple at-large spots with Miami or with A&M. In the SEC, it probably would be A&M if that's where they are, 9-3, 10-2 down the line.
Yeah.
With Miami, like, I get it. The wound is still open, and Notre Dame fans don't like Miami to begin with, but you want Miami to go win the ACC, man. Go win the ACC if you're Miami and a Notre Dame fan.
Yeah, I think the pivotal word I used was very, very good, because it swings one way or another. Like you said, Ty, if they win, it's game on. You can run the table. You got a good quality win in Texas 8-4. Texas A&M.
That was a little birthday present for Tyler.
Yeah, that's why I did. I did it for Horka. Hashtag make it about Texas. But if you lose, like I said, yeah, it's got a Sam Hartman, or I guess you get into a. Do they still do New Year Six Bowls? Is that even still a thing anymore?
No, because the New Year Six Bowls are the playoff games now.
If you lose, I agree. It feels like you feel like you did after you lost against Louisville in the Sam Hartman year. You feel like you did after you lost against Marshall in that first year. It's just it pretty much feels over. Like, you had to take care of business in these games and you didn't. That's what it would feel like.
All right, folks, hit the thumbs up on this video if you have not done so yet. Subscribe to the Blue and Gold YouTube channel for more content. And of course, blueandgold.com is your home for all things Notre Dame Fighting Irish football and recruiting coverage. Finally, a big recruiting event to cover. It's been so slow on that front since Elijah Golden committed to Notre Dame. So Cal Kelly and I are really pumped up to cover a big recruiting weekend in South Bend. So lock into blueandgold.com. Appreciate you all for tuning in. And as always, we will catch you next time.